the session so that folks can view it. If a question pops up and you want to go back to it, I know this is scintillating viewing. We'll put it on the showcase website, and also be broadcast on Sutton TV. So for those of you who I haven't met, hi, it's nice to meet you all. My name is Ted McCarthy. I'm the principal at Sutton High School. I'm joined by our fabulous assistant principal, a person who you guys know really well, Miss Corin. And our goal tonight is to kind of walk you through what happens at Sutton High School when we transition from the 8th grade to the 9th grade. Traditionally, in a non-COVID world, we would have had you guys out to the high school where you would have been able to talk to the students who participate in our clubs and activities. You would have met several of the staff. You would have been able to go and walk around the school and go to different academic presentations. Obviously, that was going to be problematic this year. We hope to have it back next year. So we did the next best thing. We built a website, and hopefully you all had a chance to take a look at it and go check out the different academic presentations. If you haven't had that chance yet, we will reshare that website at the end of tonight's program, and also with a link to Ann and I's email. So if you have any questions after the meeting, you're always encouraged to either email us, call us, or even come on in and have a talk. And certainly to the students, I hope there's a lot of students out there. In high school, we really start to shift it from being about the adults to being about the kids. And we really are hoping the kids are getting more comfortable asking questions and advocating for themselves. And so Ms. Corin and I will be around at 8th grade lunches to answer questions if they come up after tonight. So that will get started. So here's tonight's agenda. We're going to go through our academic program, a little bit about student life, transitioning from high school to 8th grade. I'm sorry, from 8th grade to high school and what that's all about. And then obviously talking a little bit, but we don't want to linger on COVID and about the effects that it's had this year and how we're going to be planning for it in the future, because I know that's a question lots of parents have, both in the 8th grade and the high school as well. There are going to be points in the evening where we're going to stop. And if you're brave enough to ask a question on Zoom, we really appreciate that. You probably don't want to hear just me and Ann talk for the entire evening. So you can certainly unmute yourself and just say, hi, my name is, and then ask your question. And Ann and I will do our best to answer it. You're also more than welcome to put those questions in the chat. And as we go through, if either Ann or I are monitoring the chat, we might interrupt each other and ask that question if it's pertinent. So away we go. So what we did this week is we went around and we talked to several of the 9th graders and asked them how they are experiencing the high school. I think even in COVID times and with this sort of strange school year that we're having, I think if you ask a 9th grader if there's a tangible difference between 9th grade and 8th grade, I think they most definitely would say yes. And so throughout the presentation, you'll have these quotations, you have these quotes from various 9th graders, and just giving you a little bit more of a flavor of what they're experiencing and how they are interacting with the high school. As I mentioned, the biggest shift that we work on at the high school is helping our 8th graders and then 9th graders become young adults who are able to ready and prepared to enter the world. While we are really proud of our academic program, no one is going to ever ask you what you got on your first quarter world history test. I promise you. What they are going to ask you is, are you a good worker? Are you reliable? Are you empathetic? Do you care? Can you work in groups? Do you have skills that can make you a productive member of a community? And that's what we work on in the high school, because there are multiple ways to be successful in the world. I always say that, I have 2 uncles that dropped out of high school. One of them did not do really well. One of them is making way more money than anyone that I know because he became a contractor and has a really nice business now. So high school is not the only way, but it's certainly one of the ways that you can be successful. And we think that we try to, at our best, provide multiple pathways for kids, whether academics is your strong suit or whether you're more hands-on. We try to have as many different avenues for you to be successful as possible. So here's our academic programs. One of our neat little, this is a picture of 2 students that graduated, I think the class before last, 2019. And we have a relationship with the Fish and Wildlife Association. So Miss O'Neill, in her science class or biology classes, we actually raise blanding turtles. They are an endangered species. And so Miss O'Neill's students, throughout the course of the year, will the Fish and Wildlife rep will come in, we'll drop off the 2 little turtles, and they'll start off even smaller than that. I think those are a little bit older than they are when we first get them. And then Ms. O'Neill and the students take care of them throughout the year, and then take a trip to the Aspet Valley Preserve and release the blanding turtles back into the wild. So we've been having that as part of the science program for a couple of years now. So like I mentioned, we're really proud of our academic program. We have 13 AP courses over the past 8 years or so. We've really increased the number of AP courses, including AP courses that are available for 9th graders. So in the 9th grade year, there's a AP Human Geography course. It's an AP course that's designed to engage 9th graders in a higher level of academic challenge, but also developmentally at where they need to be. We have dozens of different electives ranging from intro to engineering to yoga to creative writing to art to the band program to journalism to forensic science, so criminal justice. So there's lots of different electives, and for a small school, we really try to provide as many activities or as many electives as we possibly can. Beyond the classroom, we really try to not just have learning live in the classroom, but we have opportunities beyond the classroom. So for example, just today, our juniors participated in the Humanities Collaborative, which is a collaboration that Mr. Anderson and Mr. Stamos, 2 of our history teachers, they have with a group of high schools that will go and they will listen to presentations and participate in workshops with various college professors from the Worcester area. Like I mentioned, Ms. O'Neill's collaboration with the Fish and Wildlife Preserve. This year we started a robotics program that is not, while not directly tied to the classroom, obviously the students who are in intro to engineering and intro physics, that's the 9th grade science program, obviously using many of those different skills. Like I mentioned at the top, we also have different opportunities based on interest. So if you were really passionate about criminal justice and you were thinking about a career in the military or maybe in law enforcement, we have a criminal justice course, we have a forensics course, we have a civics course, we have an AP government course. If you were really interested in STEM, we have an intro to engineering course, we have a robotics team, we have the mathletes team, we have multiple AP science courses, AP bio, AP physics, AP chemistry. If you're like me, I was an English student when I was in high school. There's a journalism course, there's a creative writing course, there's AP language and AP lit. So depending on what your interest is, there's really ways for you to progress through the high school and really pursue that area that you're passionate about. And we try to be as nimble as we can. So as things come up, the students are expressing interest in, we try to shift and maybe lose things that aren't as popular and add things that are more popular. So for example, I mentioned our engineering and robotics programs. Those are recent over the last few years because we were hearing from students more and more that those were areas of interest. And so we added those. The engineering program is 2 years old and the robotics program is 1 year old. And then finally, senior year, I know it seems like a long way away, but your parents are going to tell you that 4 years goes by as in a blink. In senior year, we're really proud of our internship program where in the 4th quarter, when kids are either accepted at college or know what their after high school plans are going to be, rather than just spending that 4th quarter playing out the string in the classrooms and really being bored, we're connecting kids into areas where they're passionate about. So we have internships with the Worcester Bravehearts, with UMass Medical. Our kids, again, not in non-COVID times, are in the maternity wards, in the delivery room while families are giving birth. I always say one of the more amazing experiences that one of our interns had was the first year of the internship program. On one day, she was in the maternity ward and she was in the room when a family unfortunately lost an infant in childbirth. And then the next day, she was in a room where the doctors saved an infant during childbirth. And so if you can compare that to just, again, chapter 13 of a history textbook, I think you can see which one's more valuable, which one's going to be more interesting to a student. We consider the internship program and our capstone program sort of the culmination of all the work that the students have been doing for 13 years. So it's not like they come to the high school and get magically formed. They've been building those skills since pre-K. And what we want to do with the internship program is put our money where our mouth is when we say to our kids, hey, you're going to need this in the real world. And I think our senior internship program does exactly that. And here are some just frequently asked questions. Ms. Corn surveyed the 8th grade, and these are some questions that popped up. Will I be in classes with students from other grades? For your core classes in 9th grade, generally no. You are in classes with other 9th graders. I believe if you were taking geometry, you might be in with some 10th graders, and that would be about it as far as your core classes. Electives, most of our electives have some sort of grade delineation. So if you look at the program of studies, that's also available on the high school website. There might be, you'll see that electives are more geared towards grades 9 or 10 or grades 11 and 12. There are some classes that are all grades. So for example, Art 1, a senior might in their 4th year decide, hey, I'm interested in art, I want to try Art 1. But by and large, you're generally in classes with either yourself or 9th, 10th graders. What are the requirements for honors and AP classes? For honors classes, what we would say to you is if your 8th grade teacher has recommended you for an honors class, we would encourage you to pursue that. If your 8th grade teacher recommended you for a CP level class, we would recommend that if you're interested in honors, you at least talk to the teacher because they know the student best. And sometimes the teachers are aware of a certain skill set or content that a student might need in order to be successful at the honors level. So we really do rely and value the input of the 8th grade teachers. That being said, every year we do have some students who are like, no, I just, I wasn't feeling it in 8th grade, but I know that I'm really interested in English and I want to try honors English. I like reading, I like writing. And I would say most of those students are successful. There's probably a small handful of students who, when they push themselves to the honors, they try it for a couple of weeks and then we pull you back. AP classes, there's only one AP class available for 9th grade students. And like I mentioned, that's AP Human Geography. Mr. Friedman has done a really good job over the last few years recommending kids to that class. But again, that's an area where if you're passionate about social studies and that's an area of interest for you, it's definitely worth a conversation with Mr. Friedman. How do high school students balance academic, sports, etc.? I'm going to table that question because I think when we get to the transition from 8th grade to high school, we can actually answer that question better there. And then finally, are there engineering classes? Yes, there are. We have a intro to engineering class through a collaboration with a group called Project Lead the Way. Students who take that class are actually, if they take the test at the end of the course, are eligible for college credit, even if they take that class in the 9th grade. So that's a new class, like I mentioned a couple of years ago. We are looking to expand our engineering program. Obviously, everything kind of took a little bit of a pause with COVID kind of interfacing with the school this year. So here's another quote and a pause for a question. So does anybody have any questions in the chat? Ms. Korn, does anybody?
The chat is very quiet so far.
Very quiet. So I'm gonna take a sip of water. If anybody has a question, feel free to unmute or type it in the chat, or we can move on to the next section.
I think it's awesome that the kids had the guidance meetings last week, so they were able to see all the electives that are available to them as 9th graders, as 10th graders, 11th graders, and 12th graders, and how the list becomes more robust as you continue through high school. So I think a lot of kids were impressed and excited about that.
In our guidance department, one of the benefits of the school being as small as we are is that we do really get to know all the kids before they graduate. The guidance department and your teachers will work with you so that if you're interested in a particular area, they will encourage you to take courses that align with your interests. And I think sometimes you think that you might be interested in something, but then it turns out that it's actually not for you. And that's just as valuable as finding that thing right away. Because if you go to college and you're convinced that you're going to be a political science major and you wire all of your experiences around that, and then you get there and you're wasting a lot of money on something that you actually don't really like, finding out earlier that that's not something you are interested in is super valuable and helpful. So our guidance staff and the teachers will work with you on that. And this is you, right?
Yep. Okay, so on to student life. Go ahead right to the slide. I'm just going to go down all right. So many of you asked about what sports we have available at the high school, and we do have a very strong athletic program at the high school. Lots of people asked about football, cheer, golf, softball, baseball, ice hockey, volleyball. All of those sports are available at the high school level. We have a co-op for ice hockey and for swimming. And of course, football is a co-op as well with Sutton and Douglas. So lots of sports available. Freshmen are eligible to play. You do have to keep your grades up. And there are, like I would say, an athletic code of conduct that you also have to be aware of. In addition to the sports program, there are a variety of clubs and activities. Mr. McCarthy mentioned the robotics team. There's also drama, GSA, connections, student council. The student council does lots of great activities throughout the year. They are responsible for Spirit Week. They do a Mr. SHS night. They run the holiday variety show. So there's a lot going on in high school for activities. Other people asked in your survey, if you have an idea for a club or a club or activity, can you make that happen at the high school? And yes, the answer is yes. We're always open to your ideas. I think the rule is if you can find a teacher to advise the club, then we can give the club a go. There was a magic club for a while. So based on students' interest, there are a lot of possibilities. Esports is super popular at the high school. They made the national semifinals, so that's pretty exciting. And there's also a mathletes club. So pretty much for every interest you have, there is a club or group that you can join or try out. And basically, you just have to show up to the club. When you hear a meeting advertised, show up to a meeting and check it out. Student council is a little bit different in the high school too. It's a walk-on type situation where you were used to elections in middle school. They have elections for their board, but you can walk on to student council and it's very open to all grade levels. There's a couple. Oh, CSL. CSL is in the program of studies as a class. Is that also a club, Mr. McCarthy?
It is. I think it's again, just because of all things COVID is paused this year, but Ms. Gamble is usually the advisor of that club.
And then another question, is there a mock trial or debate club? Not currently, but there could be if there's an interest for it.
No, I'll tell you that we've, I would say that a debate team has been one of the most requested, that and cooking club have been the most requested clubs over the years. But for whatever reason, I think we'll talk about this when we talk about balancing your interests. It just never gets it never gets going. You need a certain amount of kids. Debate club can be very competitive, but again, it's just a matter of having enough kids to run it and express interest, and then we can take off with it. So it's not that we won't do it, it's just that we haven't yet.
And then at the high school, there are a lot of unique and different opportunities that aren't really available at the middle school. The student council goes to Cape Cod for a whole Massachusetts state student council event. And they have a lot of great activities there. The kids always love that event every year. And we also have the Connections program at the high school, which is a social justice program leading up to the Connections conference, which we have next week. How many people are attending? A lot of people are attending. I don't even know how many we're up to now.
1,000 people from four states and 62 schools.
And it's all virtual this year. It's incredible. There are also, COVID has again put a little halt to this, but there are international trips to Spain, Costa Rica, Italy, and students have been down to Haiti to through Be Like Brit. So there are a lot of different opportunities that you can pursue in addition to academics at Sutton High School. And the staff realizes that a well-rounded, balanced student life is very important. So while academics are important, it's also important for you to pursue and develop your other interests. And you have a lot of opportunities to do that at the high school. So any questions? Oh, pep rallies, mini Olympics, marshmallow toss. Does that look familiar?
The good old days when we can have more than 3 people in a row.
All right. So any questions about student activities, sports, that sort of thing? You can feel free to take yourself off mute or put them into the chat. And you all know that I'm very new to the high school too. So I'm just like seeing the surface of some of the opportunities that Sutton High School has to offer. I think the high school's done an incredible job throughout COVID, keeping the opportunities going. The clubs and activities are all running virtually. And I can't wait to see the potential and what goes on when we're actually back to normal. I hesitate to say that, but back to normal.
One day.
All right.
So transitioning to high school. So this is obviously the, the part of the journey that it can cause parents and students the most trepidation. What's it going to be like when I'm around the big kids? What's lunch like? How scary is it? And then, compounded with that is like you'll see a movie on TV or Netflix where it has one version of high school. And I would just say that the best part that we have going for us when we talk about transitioning from the middle school to the high school is the fact that we have a relationship with the middle school that is so close that they're actually in the same building. And that can be a blessing and a curse a little bit. So sometimes we have to negotiate with Mr. Goyette about who's going to use the library, who's going to use the small gym, but that's stuff that we usually can work out. But the benefits completely outweigh any of the sort of the drawbacks, because one of the things that most throws students off when they transition to a different school is the schedule and the culture and some of that stuff. The schedule, this year, again, we're going to pause on the COVID stuff, but typically the schedule that you had as an 8th grader in the 6th grade and the 7th grade is going to be the exact same schedule that you have in the high school. We have the same schedule. You're not going to have to figure out a different schedule, a different advisory. We'll talk about that in a second. And obviously the building is, even if you haven't been on the high school side of the building is relatively familiar. I always say that the high school is basically a square on top of a square. If you get lost, just keep going. Eventually you'll get there because there's no nooks and crannies. Nothing's really hidden. It's all just right around the corner. So some of the agita that kids feel when they start in the high school, that just kind of goes away because on the very least, they're going back into the same building where they know how big things basically work. And that means when they land in high school, they can start more of their brain is focused on academics and managing high school rather than some of the stuff that can cause some nervousness. We added a daily advisory program last year. It was a roaring success. The advisory program gives kids a half an hour every day to start to learn how to manage their own time. And what we mean by that is, so after second period of the day, if you need to go and get some extra help from your math teacher, you can go do that. If you want to go check in with your club because they have a big event coming up, you can go do that. If you need a movement break and you want to go shoot hoops in the gym with Mr. Kennedy, you can go do that. If you want a snack, the cafe is open and you can get a snack. But we really work with students to help them manage their own time responsibly. How don't you get to manage your own time? Well, if your grades are showing us that you need more work academically. So if you have a grade below a 70 in any class, you're required to spend time with that teacher until the grade is up. Once your grade is up, then you're eligible to go back and use that time as you see fit. When we added that time and that period last year, the overwhelming feedback that we got from the students, the staff, and the parents was that it made high school easier for our kids because they had time in the day to do their job. I always say that high school is the one place in the world where we expect the kids to work all day and then do their homework at night. I know most people, when they go to work, when they come home, they don't have to do homework every single night. They certainly don't have to do 3 or 4 hours of homework every night. So advisory gives kids time to get some of that work in, to study for a test, so that they can then go to soccer practice or go to football practice and not feel like everything's waiting for them when they get home. Homework, of course it's school, so there is some homework. We do try as best we can with the staff to manage the level of homework so that it's appropriate for the age and for the level of class. Obviously, if you're in an honors class, the homework is going to be more than it would be in a CP class. If you're in an AP class, the homework is going to be more than it would be in an honors class. I would say, as a rule, though, one of the things that the high school staff is exceptional at is if kids are giving them feedback like, hey, boy, like this, typically this is a junior question. hey, the juniors have a lot of tests coming up, or all their AP exams are coming up, and they'll talk to the staff, and the staff will coordinate so that not everyone's having all the tests land on the same day, and things like that. So homework's a part of life. It's part of school. It's part of college too. I'm not going to lie to you and say there's no homework, but I think the staff really does a great job at trying to work with kids on it, so that it's not eating up their entire lives. After school help.
Mr. McCarthy, that's been one of the things that the kids have, you know, commented on in their surveys throughout the year too, how teachers have been really flexible with that and really good about monitoring the homework level and listening to their needs and asking them how things are going. So lots of communication there.
I mean, I'm biased. I think the high school is fantastic and the best school in the world. But I would say just generally, to a person, the high school staff are just really just compassionate people who want kids to succeed. Not everyone's the same. They got their different personalities, and there's going to be definitely going to be teachers that you like more, and there's going to be teachers that you like less. That's just life. But regardless, the teachers are really there to help kids, and they are not just sort of like locked into the way they're going to do it, that they're inflexible when kids are kind of coming back to them and saying, hey, we need a little bit of a break here. After school help is available teachers by contract are supposed to stay 2 days a week. Again, in non-COVID times, most teachers stay well past 2 days a week. Most of them were 4 days a week, if not 5 days a week, including in the morning, where many kids would come in early. They would get in off the bus and they would go to Miss Sipek's class for math, for example, and work on algebra questions before class started. When do we eat lunch? Again, COVID's a little bit different, but typically the high school has one lunch. You sit where you want. There's no like 8th grade section, 7th grade section, 6th grade section. In the cafeteria, you just kind of go and sit, and you find your friends and you sit down with the kids that you want to sit with. That's just part of high school culture. Rules. Again, we're preparing you to be young adults. We're not really some of the rules that are sort of more developmentally appropriate for middle school are just not in the high school. So you're allowed to have your phone on you, but if you take it out during the class, the teacher's going to confiscate it. The dress code, our dress code was actually written by students a number of years ago to make it less sexist and more inclusive. And we've had zero issues with dress code since then. Lockers, you can use your lockers in between period, although I'll always say that the 9th graders carry around these big giant backpacks and I worry about their spines. But you can go to your lockers whenever you want. I mean, there's too many changes. There's too many variants in the rules to talk about here. But I would say overall, we're giving you more freedom so that you can learn how to be a responsible young adult and prepared for the world.
Make good choices, be appropriate, be respectful. That's part of growing up.
And student support, Mr. Gillen has a great phrase that I like to mimic, talk about when we have these meetings. Everybody has a mental health just like they have a physical health. So I'm a runner. I run pretty much every day. And there are days when my Achilles might be a little sore. And so then the next day I might not run because I'm going to take care of my physical health. You need to take care of your mental health too. There are times when you might be stressed out or feeling anxious or depressed. And those are all part of growing up and part of life. All of us have those feelings at one time or another. But if it's getting to the point where it's interacting and not helping you be productive, or not allowing you to be productive rather, then that's why we have counselors and folks who are experts in that area, so they can support and help you. And we added another mental health counselor to the high school, middle school this year, Mr. Zagami. He runs a room in the high school where if you're feeling like you just need to take a pause, you can go there. Again, students of all shapes and sizes have used the room successfully throughout the year. We also have Mr. Gillen and Ms. Brousseau, who students should know because they work with the middle school students as well there all the time, as well as our school psychologist, Ms. Carnes, and our 2 guidance counselors. So for a small school, we have lots of mental health support, and not just, hey, I'm having a significant issue with depression. Sometimes it could be a friend issue. Hey, I'm having a hard time talking to my friend about thus and such. And the counselor could talk to you for 1 or 2 times and then solve your problem and off you go. That's why they're there, because that's part of high school life as well. So just a couple of questions in the chat. Are there fees associated with any of the activities? No, there are not. Your parents' hard tax dollars pay for those activities. Oh, Mrs. Corn already answered. Just the sports fee, no for clubs. The sports fee, unfortunately, is part of the equation and apparently not going anywhere.
Right. Any other questions out there about the transition to high school? Okay, we have nothing in the chat, no more.
So as Ms. Corrin talked about, our guidance counselors met with all the 8th graders last week and gave them course selection sheets. So if you could please have those into us no later than the 26th, today's the 16th, so it still gives you
Next
10 days to get them in.
Yeah.
So again, if you're having questions, if you have a specific question about a specific course, you can always call me. You can always talk to Ms. Corrin. I'm happy to answer questions. If it's a leveling question, like I mentioned, you definitely want the first person you talk to, obviously should be the student, but then after the student should talk to the, Mr. Waterhouse, Mr. Freeman, whoever the teacher is, and talk about that level. But you can always call us.
And just to pop in there, the high school guidance counselors are going to offer some office hours for you during SPP this Thursday and next Tuesday. So if you have questions, they will get you some information about Zooming in to chat with them, and they will help you work through your selection sheets, answer any of your specific questions.
So COVID, again, we don't want to spend a heck of a lot of time on COVID. But we just do want to talk to you a little bit about how we're approaching it as we head into next year, as it looks like things are opening up and the vaccines are rolling out and restrictions are being relaxed. And it looks like we can see the end of the tunnel here. And then we're going to be getting into a new version of school, and kids are going to have gone through this for the past year plus. So high school and middle school, again, an advantage that we have is that if Ms. Lasipek, who teaches Algebra 1, has a question about what Mr. Waterhouse covered in Math 8, she walks down the hall and asks him. That's just sort of a daily thing that happens.
It is.
But obviously, we're going to be doing a lot more collaboration between the 8th grade staff and the high school staff to identify the areas in the curriculum that might need more support or coverage. So with just sort of the way we've done school this year, it's understandable that not every single thing had been covered. Our school is just like every other school. I don't think we're unique in that regard. But I think where we are unique is that the relationship that we have between the middle and high school is really strong, and that's going to allow us to pick the ball up and run with it relatively quickly. So that's going to be that's happening on these Wednesdays, on the Wednesday half days. It'll be happening throughout the rest of the year, and then beyond is next year too. As a high school teacher, they know what they've covered in their class, and then they know what they need to do going forward. So for the high school kids who are already here, our teachers are planning on how they can, if Mr. Anderson didn't cover one particular part of U.S. History 1, then Mr. Stamos is going to pick it up in U.S. History 2, that kind of thing. And that over time, we'll get back to where we need to be so that we're right back on pace where we should be. Again, because we are a little bit smaller, I think we're a little bit more nimble and we can do these things a little bit more quickly. Finally, summer of 2021, we do have a grant application in for academic support over the summer. That's not just going to be for kids who might have struggled academically. That's going to be for all sorts of kids. It just based on whether or not we get the grant and how many staff we can hire, and then the interest from the community. Understandably, kids and parents might want their summer off. I know I want my summer off. But if you do want to spend a little bit of the summer boning up on academics, regardless of your level, that hopefully will be available. And hopefully now that the stimulus bill has been approved and the grant funding hopefully comes through, we should be able to offer that at the high school. And it might be a nice way to get introduced to the high school, some of the staff, and just learn your way around it a little bit. Summer reading, I hear the groans from across the Zoom screens. However, as an English teacher, former English teacher, I will just tell you that if you want to become a better student, one of the easiest things you can do is just read. It's not magic. The more you read, the better writer you are, the better reader you are, the better speaker you are. So if there is going to be a summer reading requirement at the high school. Generally, the way that it works at the high school is we have a theme. And it might be like pick a book where a character overcomes a challenge. And as long as it's high school appropriate, you can pick the book that interests you. It's not everyone has to read this one book. So we really hope the kids read at least one book over the summer, if not more, because that just keeps that brain turning, keeps those gears working, so that when you're coming back into the fall, you're not coming in cold. You're coming in, you're a little bit warmed up because you've been doing some reading. And again, the old English teacher in me, I'll just tell you that the more you read, the easier school is. It just is. And then finally, ninth grade orientation. We weren't able to have that last year because of COVID. We will be having it this year. I think the restrictions, obviously, if we're all going to be in school in a couple of weeks, then we can manage. Then we can manage a ninth grade orientation regardless of any sort of COVID safety issues that we need to overcome. That's definitely doable, and we've spent the better part of the year learning how to manage all that. So you all will have a more traditional ninth grade orientation where we hope you come in, meet some of our older students, find out where your lockers are, see where the classes are, meet some of your teachers, and just get a little bit of the lay of the land before you start in August or September. I don't
September 1st, I think. September 1st or 2nd.
September 1st. So I think this is the end, right, Ann?
Yeah, yep.
So this is my advice to eighth graders entering the high school next year. Is the high school is a great time to try new things. Mr. DeLongchip, who's now over at Auburn, that was what he would always say to the eighth graders when they would come in for their first meetings at the high school. You know, if you've always had an interest in robotics, this is the year to try the robotics club. If you've been running on your own, but you might want to be, you think you might want to be the cross country team, this is the year to try it. It's amazing how just being in a different school with a different sort of vibe, some of the stuff that sort of like hanging over your head in middle school just goes away because it's just a different experience at the high school. So it should provide you a fresh start. Whether you had a great year in eighth grade or not a great year in eighth grade or somewhere in the middle, high school is a fresh start for everyone, and we really try our best to work with everyone to be successful and have a great experience there. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing the screen and we will leave it open for any questions.
Oh, you know what was on the last slide was the website and the email.
Oh, I will email you the website and our email.
Oh, I emailed it to all the kids when I emailed them the Zoom link, so they should have it.
Perfect. Any questions? Anybody want to type anything in the chat or ask anything to the group can hear? Okay.
Hope we covered everything.
I hope we covered everything. We're going to stop recording now. We'll hang back, and if you want to ask some questions when some of the folks have left, feel free. But like we mentioned, you can always call us up at the high school, and we're happy to answer any questions that you have. We really hope that you all have a great rest of your year. I know many of you are probably very excited to be coming back into school in a few weeks. We're definitely excited to have all the kids back coming soon. So stay safe, take care, and if you have any questions, please reach out. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.